What happens when one of the world's biggest music stars sits across from a late-night host who refuses to play along with the script? Tonight, we're looking at one of the most awkward television moments in recent memory, where what should have been an ordinary promotional interview turned into a heated confrontation that defined careers, stunned viewers, and left insiders scrambling to explain what had gone wrong. Before we dive deep into this unbelievable story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments on what you think really sparked this fiery clash. The Tonight Show studio buzzed with the usual excitement before filming. Ed Sheeran, there to promote his newest album, took his seat across from Jimmy Fallon. The British singer-songwriter appeared relaxed in his simple, casual clothes, his acoustic guitar resting against his leg like an old friend. The audience, full of enthusiastic fans, cheered loudly as the cameras started rolling live. "Daran, everybody!" Jimmy shouted with his trademark enthusiasm, clapping along with the crowd. "Thanks so much for being here tonight, mate." Ed gave a small smile, shifting in his chair slightly. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Always happy to be here." "So your new album," Jimmy began, holding up the vinyl copy. "It's fantastic. Really personal. Tell us about the inspiration behind some of these songs." Ed's face changed just slightly, a flicker of something hard to read crossing his eyes. "Well, you know, music always comes from life. From the ups and downs. Love, heartbreak, happiness, everything that makes us human." Right. Jimmy nodded quickly. "And about relationships, there's been some buzz about track 7. People are convinced it's about someone from your past." The room went still for a moment. Ed's hand tightened ever so slightly around his guitar. "I don't usually explain the personal stories behind my songs, Jimmy. I think the music should speak for itself." Jimmy kept smiling, but there was something sharp in his gaze now. "Come on, Ed, fans are dying to know. The lyrics are kind of obvious. Red hair like autumn leaves, promises we couldn't keep. That's gotta be about someone real." Ed straightened, his voice cooling. "Like I said, I'd rather let the music do the talking. It's not fair to the people in my life to tear apart every lyric on national TV. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it?" Jimmy pushed, leaning closer. "The honesty, the openness, that's what people connect with." "There's a line between honesty and exploitation," Ed shot back, his accent stronger as tension entered his voice. "Some things should remain private." Jimmy chuckled, but it was hollow. "Exploitation? Strong word. We're just chatting about your art, Ed, are we?" Ed asked, his question hanging in the air. "Because it feels more like you're chasing tabloid headlines." The audience stirred uneasily, sensing the shift in tone. Jimmy's grin faltered before returning, tighter than before. "Hey, I'm just curious about the creative process. That's what interviews are about, right? Interviews should be about the work, not prying into someone's private life," Ed replied, his voice steady but strained. "I've been doing this long enough to know the difference." Jimmy spread his hands, playing innocent. "I'm not prying, man. I'm just asking about the songs you chose to release. If you didn't want people to wonder, why put it out there?" Ed's jaw clenched. "Because art demands vulnerability. That doesn't mean I owe anyone an explanation of my private life." "But your fans," Jimmy began. "My fans," Ed interrupted, "respect the music without me having to pick apart my personal relationships for their amusement." Silence fell heavy. Behind the cameras, producers waved frantically, but Jimmy pressed on. "Look, I get it. Privacy matters. But you're here promoting an album that's clearly personal. You can't fault people for being curious." "I don't blame people for being curious," Ed said firmly. "I'm questioning the way you're feeding that curiosity." Jimmy laughed, but the sound rang false. "My approach? I'm doing my job. This is late-night TV. This is what people want, is it?" Ed asked, cutting sharp. "Or is that what you think people want because it's easier than real journalism?" The word landed like a punch. Jimmy's smile cracked, his expression stiff. "Journalism? Ed, this is a comedy show, not 60 Minutes. "Exactly," Ed said softly. "So why are you trying so hard to stir up drama?" The tension thickened. The audience, once thrilled by the clash, now looked uneasy. Some glanced at their phones, others whispered nervously. Jimmy cleared his throat, trying to recover. "You're overthinking this. We're just having a conversation." "Is this a conversation?" Ed asked, his voice like steel. Or is this an interrogation? Jimmy's mask slipped just a little. That's dramatic, don't you think? What's dramatic? Ed replied deliberately. Is turning someone's personal pain into a storyline for your show. The words hit hard. Jimmy's polished exterior wavered as he absorbed them. The stage lights felt hotter. The audience held their breath, witnessing something far removed from the usual playful interviews. Personal pain into content? Jimmy repeated defensively. You put it in a song, Ed, released it to millions. How's that not already content? Ed's eyes burned. Because there's a difference between art and cheap voyeurism. When I write, I share emotion, not a map to my private life for people to dissect. But you know, Jimmy pressed, falling back on training, when you're as big as you are, people naturally want to know the stories behind the music. It's just human nature. Human nature, Ed repeated bitterly. Is that what we call invasive questioning now? Human nature? The audience was silent, some people cringing. Phones came out, recording what was quickly becoming a late-night disaster. Jimmy forced another laugh. You're taking this way too seriously, mate. We're just chatting. No, Jimmy, Ed leaned in. We're not chatting. You came here with an agenda. You had questions crafted to make me expose personal details that don't belong on TV. Don't act like I wouldn't notice. You even quoted lyrics hoping I'd confirm who they were about, live on your show. Jimmy's smile tightened painfully. You're reading too much into this. I'm just giving fans insight into your creative process. My creative process doesn't mean dragging up old relationships or exposing people who never asked to be in the spotlight. Ed's voice rose. It's about turning life into art, not gossip fodder. The producers were now practically shouting directions from behind the cameras, but Jimmy refused to stop. Look, Ed, I respect your privacy, but your personal life has always been part of your public image. Your marriage, your friendships, collaborations, it's all part of the Ed Sheeran brand. Ed's eyes went cold. The Ed Sheeran brand, he repeated softly. The words hit like a stone. The audience froze, sensing a line had been crossed. I didn't mean it that way, Jimmy stumbled. I just meant fans see you as a whole person, not just music. So in your mind, Ed said quietly, my private life is just branding material to turn into content. That's what you just admitted. That's not what I said, Jimmy insisted weakly. It's exactly what you said, Ed countered. And it shows how you've been treating me this whole time. Not as a person here to share music, but as a product to exploit. Jimmy's composure slipped further. Ed, you're twisting my words. I'm trying to have a real conversation about your art. Real? Ed gave a humorless laugh. There's nothing real here. You prepared questions to make me squirm, hoping I'd slip and give you a viral soundbite. That's not real. That's manipulation. The word landed heavy. Jimmy flushed, his temper boiling over. Manipulation? You're serious? That's how interviews work. This is TV. This is bad TV, Ed fired back. Good TV would ask about arrangements, production, collaborations. Bad TV is turning my pain into a circus. Our audience doesn't want chord progressions, Jimmy shot back. They want you, the person. No, Ed said firmly. They want my music. You've just decided the only way to deliver that is by crossing lines. Jimmy's voice cracked. Ridiculous. I asked you about a song. That's not crossing any line. Ed stood suddenly, his guitar sliding off his leg. You asked me to confirm painful details of a past relationship so you could score a TV moment. That's exploitation. The studio went silent. Even the crew froze. Exploitation? Jimmy's voice rose, angry now. You've made millions singing about heartbreak, built a career off it, and you're accusing me of exploiting you? They're my stories, Ed shouted, to share or not share as I choose. You're trying to force me to reveal what I never agreed to. They're in the songs, Jimmy yelled back, rising too. If you didn't want people to know, why write about them? Because art isn't a diary, Ed's voice thundered. Writing about pain doesn't mean I owe you names and dates. The declaration rang like a hammer through the studio. The audience gasped. Jimmy's face was red, furious. So you get to cash in on your life, but nobody else can ask? How convenient. Profit. Ed was stunned. You think I write for money? You think I bare my soul for a paycheck? Jimmy snapped back. Don't be naive. You're one of the richest touring artists alive. Don't preach integrity when you've made millions off your heartbreaks. Ed's voice trembled with rage. I can't believe you said that. Why not? It's the truth, Jimmy said, completely dropping his host act. You've made a fortune singing your pain, and now you act like a victim when asked about it. The audience squirmed, some whispering nervously. Ed's voice dropped to a whisper. The fact you can't tell the difference between art and intrusion says everything about this show. This show, Jimmy snapped back, is one of the most successful on TV. Successful at what? Ed asked. At entertaining or at manufacturing drama by disrespecting guests? Jimmy sputtered. I give people what they want. No, Ed shook his head. You give them what'll trend online. That's not the same thing. The words landed hard. Jimmy's anger boiled over. How dare you come here and lecture me? You think you're above this because you sing pretty songs? Ed glared. I'm above exploiting people's pain for ratings. You chose to put it in songs, Jimmy barked. You sell it. Perform it. But I'm the bad guy for asking? Yes, Ed said coldly. Because when I sing, I share emotion. When you pry, you turn it into gossip, Jimmy snapped. That's the most arrogant thing I've ever heard. You can't have it both ways. Ed lifted his guitar strap calmly. I can when the questions are meant to embarrass, not understand. Embarrass? Jimmy shouted. I asked about your own lyrics. It's how you asked, Ed said firmly. You came in armed with details looking for me to slip. That's not curiosity. That's entitlement. Jimmy was red-faced, shaking. This is madness. You're impossible. Ed turned toward the camera, voice steady. I came here to talk about music. Instead, I was interrogated for clicks. Jimmy's voice dropped dangerously. Don't you dare spin this on me. You turned this into a lecture. No, Ed replied. You turned this into an invasion of privacy the second you valued content over respect. Jimmy's hands shook. Get off my stage, the audience gasped. Ed smiled faintly. Gladly. He nodded at the audience. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy the music. He walked off stage in silence, his footsteps echoing. Jimmy stayed frozen, chest heaving as Ed vanished into the wings. The camera crew looked lost, unsure if they should cut. Jimmy finally snapped out of it, realizing what had just played out live. His face shifted from anger to dread. We'll be right back, he muttered, barely audible. The studio lights dimmed.